There's certain points in the fishing industry that I think if you're a student in the game, you look back on and say, hey, that was a big deal. And at the time, I don't know if you really realize it, right? And it's like that Berkeley Summit. Is that kind of one of those moments, you think, for ice fishing?
Yeah, there was a moment years ago on Lake Mille Lacs where, like, our idols to this day still were fishing and obviously pioneering things, whether it's Mr. Gary Roach, Dave Genz, Al Linder, slew of guys, and I'm going to miss many of the names. We're hanging out on Lake Mille Lacs. And this was years ago, Ross. I don't know if you and I we probably were born. We were young dudes, right? Making our parents' lives living heck. But they were in these hard shacks catching walleyes when the sun came up and the sun went down. But then you have this long window of time during the day. And I know Dave Genz sat there saying, what do you do all day? Well, we just sit and hang out and talk, and we wait for that prime time bite. And he says, well, where are the fish? Oh, we're not sure. And Dave Genz many years ago said, well, why are we sitting in this hard-sided fish house? I know it's comfortable. Move around. Well, lo and behold, that soon birthed the fish trap because he needed something to move around in and keep the elements off his body. So it's crazy how we find ourselves in these situations and how you just think outside the box and what's that next thing to catch fish. And for Dave, it became, how do we be mobile? Like, in order to catch fish, anyone can catch fish when the sun comes up and the sun goes down. Anyone can. If you're on the right spot, I don't care your skill level, you can catch fish. The challenge in the sport of fishing, whether it's ice fishing or anything, is when the bite's not amazing, how do you catch them?
And I guess, maybe tell people a little bit the Genz story because, when I think of Dave, the first thing I think of is the fold over, or what we now kind of call the clam style shack. Yep. But for people that don't really know, kind of expanded upon that, how that came about and that whole little Genz story, because his wife was literally sewing the first ones but I'll let you tell the story because you definitely sat with them a lot more than I have.
We just had the 40th anniversary this year of the Fish Trap. 40 years ago, he sat in his garage thinking how to find a way to be more mobile, like we were discussing, and he birthed this Fish Trap. And yes, Patsy, his late wife Patsy, would sew the canvas on by hand around the conduit all the way along, all the bars. And he would build these sleds out of wood. He'd paint them. He'd doll them up. And of course, as the years progressed, he would find plastic molds and better canvas and better fabric. But from day one, he was building these things in his garage. I think the first year he built like 3 of them. And he gave one to each of his closest buddies. And every person on the ice would come walking up and say, what are you fishing out of? And Dave's like, it's the Fish Trap. And what's the Fish Trap? And Dave would tell him. Year 2, I think he built like a dozen. Year 3, he had to actually start coming up with a business plan because there was enough demand that he actually had to dedicate X amount of time every day to building these things. And the rest is history. So it's quite a cool story. And, Dave tells it much better than I do. And and he gets emotional about it, obviously. It's kind of, he's left this stamp on the industry. And even though we have all these other brands that have flip over models and all this stuff, he started it all. And he always jokes, he's like, if I knew what I knew now, I might have tried this thing called a patent on flipping over something to ice fish out of, but he didn't know any better back then. And that's not how he's wired. He's not a greedy individual. He's not that person. He did what he did to make the sport better, to help people catch fish. And to this day, Dave Genz isn't that guy that cares about prestige or fame, and he continues to do it. He continues to find new concepts. You're going to see more products coming out that you and I will go, why didn't I think of that? What? Like, he's still on the top of his game. But from day one, he was finding ways to be better. And that Fish Trap, I think, and mobility changed the game forever for ice fishing. And it's something that everyone always asks me, hey, Matt, who's the next Dave Genz? And I honestly will look him in the eye and say, there won't be one.